Hey, welcome live from Dennis's house. Today we got another special show. Every week it's like a special show, you notice that? Last time we did the rise and fall of the music industry, the history of music, if you will. But today we're doing the 25 most influential songs of all time. And we have a different format and everything. So we're going right into this because we're going to probably have a lot to cover. And we're going to be playing songs in between while I'm going through this list. So we got a lot to cover. We're going to start from the beginning of rock and roll, by the way. Did I mention it was of rock and roll?
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
25 most influential songs of all time
songs,
featuring rock and roll. So here we go. We're going to start from the beginning of rock and roll. Everything you ever wanted is right on this one list, Jim. Are you ready? And look at these albums. We're giving it away already, but we're going to start from 1950s. We're going to start with...
I need to interject?
Here goes the table.
Immediately. I need to interject immediately.
Don't flip it over.
How could you not have any blues?
Because it's not rock and roll.
Are you kidding me?
Listen to me.
Robert Johnson
Listen to me.
Rock and roll wouldn't exist.
That's why I just said what I said. That last time we did the rise and fall, the history of music.
Is rock and roll.
Listen. The history of rock and roll is what you're talking about. The forefathers of rock and roll. And that's where I described what you're talking about. Blues, country, gospel, etc. till it came to the 50s, which was the birth of rock and roll. And that's the starting off point of this list right here.
So a 50s rock and roll song. Go.
Yes. Good interjection.
All right.
We're going to start off rock and roll right here. Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry.
Agreed.
Now,
it's
anyone who's ever played rock and roll,
you keep a number, but you can't come in.
Anyone who's ever played the guitar, it was because of Chuck Berry. Whether you're playing in an Anthrax tribute band or Slayer, you're playing at least one Chuck Berry riff during every solo, and you don't even know it. But, you know, he was very instrumental in other things, too. His songwriting and his chord progressions and all of this.
Watching girls pee on
camera. Yeah, love that. That's his favorite.
Transporting young white girls across state lines for illegal purposes. The 25 most influential songs of all time. Chuck Berry. And we're not going in any individual order here. We're not saying the most influential, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to start from the birth of rock and roll, work our way up till today. And, you know, there's going to be a lot from the year 2017, of course. Right, Jim?
Yes. Absolutely.
So anyway, all right. So right after that, we had Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry. So influential. John Lennon once said, if you're not going to call it rock and roll, you would call it Chuck Berry.
It's true.
There you go.
I would say before Chuck Berry came along, the guitar was thin.
Exactly.
He really filled it out. His tone, his style, his
And he changed the world. No one ever did that before, what he was doing.
Very true.
Absolutely.
So that's influential right there. Can't argue with that. Right. Next, I'm going with Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley out of Pennsylvania. Did you know Bill Haley was out of Pennsylvania? Blackboard Jungle.
Very good.
There you go. And he would perform at the Jersey Shore, but this was the first rockabilly guy, if you will. And he was very influential. And this song, you want to know how influential it was, Jim? It was the theme song to Happy Days.
Happy Days.
It was.
Can't get any more influential than that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, actually, I think it was the pilot episode. They used that.
And even the first season, too. Yeah,
it was the whole first season?
Yeah, definitely.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
And then the next song after that is going to be Hound Dog by Elvis. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be Hound Dog, but I have to pick one Elvis song, and I'm going to tell you why.
Why would it be Hound Dog?
I went Jailhouse Rock.
I just picked that one because it doesn't necessarily have to be the one. Like I said, it could be intertwined with Jailhouse Rock or whatever.
Elvis, Tiger Man.
Yeah.
Tiger Man. No. I'm going to tell you why.
Tiger Man.
That might be good.
The leather suit.
I love it.
That was awesome, of course. But that's not influential. Everything.
It proved to everybody that Elvis could actually play guitar. It really was. It was.
But we're talking about music and the formation of music and the history of music and the building blocks.
I know.
And that at this
point,
point,
left out Little Richard.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you why.
I'm
going to tell you why because you can't list everybody. But I love Little Richard. He was so influential as well. But the reason why the music went to the masses was because they were looking for and they found a white boy that could sing the songs and relate to the masses out there and put the music to the next level.
That is true.
That they had Pat Boone. That's what you had, at that time too.
Yeah, Bobby Darin.
And it was like, oh my God, that was criminal that they had Pat Boone out there singing these guys' songs. But Elvis really had the the feeling and the soul. He learned it from the gospel music.
Yeah.
And let's talk about gospel for a second. I want to go back because I mentioned this on the History of Rock and Roll show. And what do you feel about this? That without slavery, there would be no rock and roll and no rap. So, because slavery was brought over to here, and the slaves would be singing in the fields while they're picking, and that turned into spirituals, which turned into gospel music, which then was a huge part of rock and roll.
I totally disagree. There's a reason why. Okay. They already carried over their own musical forms from their
Africa.
country,
Yeah.
from Africa.
Yeah, they were brought over here. Without slavery, they weren't brought here.
There would be no blues music without slavery to a degree.
Exactly, to any degree. There'd be no black people here without slavery.
But
well, no, but he's talking about rap music and other things like that.
I'm talking because there'd be no rock and roll. Everything came from
evolution of that.
The gospel and the blues was so instrumental in rock and roll music that it wouldn't be the same without black people creating and jazz too. Black people created jazz. So if
but black people didn't create the measure like Gregorian chant, which is
but I'm not saying that I'm not saying they invented music, but I'm saying without rock and roll, without slavery, without gospel, without blues, without jazz, rock and roll wouldn't be what it is right now. Rock and roll
would still exist,
but it wouldn't be what it is.
It might have taken a different form.
How?
Yeah.
How?
We don't know.
We wouldn't have had Chuck Berry.
This is all hypothetical.
We wouldn't have had Chuck Berry. We wouldn't have had Elvis learning from the gospel. All right, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole other show. We're editing this all out. All right.
It's crazy.
So anyway, Elvis was huge. He became the king.
He was the biggest ever.
Exactly.
He was fantastic.
He was amazing.
He was amazing.
Yes.
He had the pelvis.
Right.
The
so,
pelvis.
And that was 50s music. And of course, like I said, it's not necessarily the best. It doesn't even have to be the best. It's the most influential that we're talking about right now. And these guys were the most influential at that time because there was so many other good music at that point. Like you said, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, Fats Domino, et cetera, all that stuff was huge. Right, but
Louis Prima.
Starting at that point, these guys were hugely influential, and these are my picks of the 50s most influential songs, building up into the 60s. At the end of the 50s, all these guys went away, and we had nonsense like Pat Boone and Fabian and BS again.
Donovan?
For the first part.
Cool stuff.
No. We're talking about the first part of the 60s, the early 60s, until 1964. You know what happened in 1964?
The Beatles.
Yes, exactly. The Beatles. And I'm going to go with She Loves You from Meet the Beatles as one of the most influential songs of all time.
I went Love Me Do.
It really, once again, that is interchangeable. That it's like some of these songs are more so the band, and I'm just picking one of the most influential songs, but it doesn't really matter. You can pick any Beatles song from 1964, and like we talked about in Tom Petty, every musician after that was influenced by seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. So up until that time, you were influenced by Chuck Berry, but then between 59 and 64, it was a vast wasteland till the Beatles took our blues and jazz and rock and roll from the 50s,
mixed them all together,
and put it back to us and gave us some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about it's kind of a little boring and not inflectual as far as inflectual. Yeah, I'm inventing words now too.
You guys are good.
What do you mean?
Well, what I'm saying is that the Beatles they were cute.
Of course.
They were like the boy band of the 1960s.
Well, yeah. But...
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up about this because I knew you were going to go into the Beatles.
Well, of course I would have to because...
No, but that's literally saying...
no
that's
list
like
without
saying,
the Beatles.
If because you grew up in the 60s, the Backstreet Boys were the greatest band of all time. That's kind of what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, a little bit.
The Backstreet Boys.
He's not that far off.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not that far off.
He's right.
No, the Beatles became a greater band in the mid 60s to the late 60s. So
of course.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I want to hold your hand. Has nothing to do with this.
It has everything to do with it.
Come
because
on.
I want to hold your hand. She loves you.
Jimmy, back me up.
That
man.
changed
Seriously.
the musical landscape. Listen,
Jimmy,
it
I
changed.
I think the Beatles.
Challenge
It changed
him.
the
All right,
musical.
challenge him.
All right, so let's say
All right.
after Elvis and everybody went away in the 50s, there was nothing until the Beatles.
I don't-
It was
I don't agree
a
with that.
wasteland.
I don't-
Tell me what was between
Buddy
59.
Holly.
Well,
Like,
no, of
no,
course,
like, you had-
Buddy
like-
Holly died in 1959. From 1960 to 1964, what was there on
Little
the
Richie
musical
was still
landscape?
there.
No,
Bobby Darin,
nothing
Little
was
Richard,
there.
yes.
Nothing was there.
No, you're such a
It was
liar.
Fabian. It was White Milk
At the
Toast.
end of the 50s?
Right, all these
No.
bands went away. Buddy Holly died. Elvis got inducted into the army. Chuck Berry was arrested. On and on. This 50s music stopped at that point, at 1960. From 1960 to 1964, there was nothing. It was a cultural wasteland with nothing.
cultural wasteland.
Where did the Righteous Brothers go?
Who knows what the Righteous Brothers
I'm
was
saying
in
there's-
after that? You think they're more important
Bobby
than the Beatles?
Darin.
He was nothing compared to the Beatles.
No, I'm not saying. I'm
It's
not
not-
comparing them.
I don't know what you're saying then.
I'm saying that the Beatles in the 1964 maybe are not necessarily rock and roll.
Are you're
Maybe at
just
that point in time.
sick
It's
now?
pop.
You
It's just
have
pop.
sick.
It's pop.
You have a
It's
sickness,
pop.
Jim. That I'm
No,
going to
no.
call
Chuck
someone.
Berry to me
It's
is heavier
pop.
than the Beatles
It's
in
pop.
'64. Elvis,
You keep on knocking,
56.
but you
Well,
can't
now
come
listen,
in.
that
Like,
you can't
seriously,
compare-
That is like, come on,
don't
that's rock and
compare-
roll.
It's rock and roll.
Don't compare Slayer to 1964.
Jerry
That-
Lewis?
There was nothing. Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis was huge influence too, but he wasn't the most influential because he came after. So I'm talking about influential here. Now you cannot deny that 1964 Beatles
I think the
was the
Beatles-
most influential thing to ever happen
They
in
were
music
about
history.
being a band and not an artist.
Whatever.
Whereas everybody before then, you're like, you're bringing up Fabian. You just said Fabian 5 times in the last 10 minutes.
Right.
Seriously, you're like Fabian, Fabian, Fabian,
What's
and
your
Fabian.
point?
Well, my point is that, like,
Because-
literally, it's one guy, whereas opposed to the Beatles were the Beatles.
what does that
You didn't
mean?
have bands. No, you didn't. Before 1963, you didn't really have bands.
They were
All right,
in-
that's a
had
good
Buddy
point
Holly
too. That's what I'm saying.
and
And the
the
crickets,
Crickets.
right?
You never
and, all right,
had
that's a
a
good
bit-
point.
yeah.
Actually, very good point.
Oh, thank you. I try once in a while, you know.
So, all right. So now we're way behind schedule. We got to move on. There's no one that can question the influence of the Beatles. And the Beatles started in 1964. And everyone watching Ed Sullivan that then went on to form another band was listening to Love Me Do, I Want to Hold Your Hand,
Very
and She
true.
Loves You.
Very
She
true.
Loves You, therefore,
yeah.
is the pick of the most influential song of that time period. Next, I'm going with Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones.
That's
Because
good.
that moves the music up a little bit. And it's Mick Jagger as not like the boys in suits. These are badass guys. And they're
more
talking
aggressive.
about,
It's more in your
like,
face.
For me,
I
the
can't get
difference
no
between the
satisfaction.
Stones and the Beatles are, the Beatles talk about holding hands,
Right.
and the Stones talked about, like, let's get down.
Exactly.
Let's do something fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point of
as
that.
PG as
That's
that
why
can
the
be.
Stones are on there.
Yes.
Because they took it to a whole nother level. There was a million whatchamacallit, British invasion bands there that don't make this list because they just came after the Stones and the Beatles. And they were just more, they were great, great songs. The Kinks,
You love
all this
Herman's
kind of
Hermits.
stuff. So of
Come
course they
on,
do.
you love that.
Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely
You've
daughter.
got a
But that's
lovely
not
daughter.
influential. That's not influential.
You
That
love
was
it.
good stuff. So then the next step, I'm going to tell you right here, is Like a Rolling Stone by the Bob Dylans.
Yeah, by the Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan.
Remember them?
Those Bob Dylan.
Yes. So Bob
7-piece
Dylan,
band.
took it to a whole nother level. Of course, he was a folk guy, but now he went electric, and he said, now you can put real lyrics into songs. It doesn't have to be, I want to hold your hand. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be that. It could be
Very true.
poems, if you will,
And what year is this?
This was
60,
1965,
65, yeah.
right? And that's when Satisfaction was too. So it was 65, and that was the summit meeting that I talked about in the history of rock and roll, that the Beatles and Bob Dylan met, and Bob Dylan turned the Beatles onto pot and said, you guys can write about other things. And they told him, well, you can play rock music. And it was like, peanut butter meeting chocolate.
Light bulb.
Exactly.
It's
and
like
the world
Nutella and strawberries in the morning.
Exactly.
I'm telling
it
you.
all burst open, wide open. So then The next song that I'm going to say, there might be some controversy here. The song is called God Only Knows by the Beach Boys.
That's actually my favorite Beach Boys song.
And it's my favorite Beach Boys song, too.
It's a heavy
You know,
song.
a lot of stuff I don't, care for the Beach Boys, even though it was very popular. But the reason this
That
was
whole
so...
album, Pet Sounds is
right,
amazing.
Pet Sounds is amazing. And the reason it's so influential is because it changed. It was so elaborate, the production.
Went away from the
and,
surf rock. That they,
Right.
I always
And-
thought it was like their answer to Rubber Soul, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
It came out around the same
And
time.
then, but
and,
that's
like,
what
Good call.
happened. That
Yeah.
this was Paul McCartney's favorite song.
Yeah.
And he said that was his favorite album, which influenced him to create Sgt. Pepper.
Right.
That was the main driving force beside.
It's like all these artists at the same time were pushing each
Right,
other.
right,
Like, it was
exactly.
pretty amazing.
And it
Feeding
was,
off each other.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. And that leads
Rubber
me.
Soul came out, and then all of a sudden Pet Sounds came out.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next song, which is the Beatles Again, which I put in my life, but it could be anything off of Rubber
love
Soul or
it. Yeah,
Revolver,
Rubber Soul is my favorite,
because
yeah.
this is the Beatles' first step into new writing.
Exactly.
And stuff. It wasn't
And
She Loves You.
thoughtful writing.
Right, exactly. And that opened up
Norwegian
the whole...
Wood is an amazing song.
Exactly.
You
Oh
know,
my god.
And this brought us
the
into...
harpsichord.
Oh, it's heavy.
God.
Layers. It's
Yeah,
thick.
it's
It's
so good.
dense.
And
Yeah.
it brought us into the next era, starting in 1967. But let me just say my credentials here. I want to state my credentials as the foremost expert on everything musical and everything musically related.
Oh god.
I also want to say that I am the most diverse and critically acclaimed musical aficionado of our generation. That there's nobody that likes music more than me or likes
Ever.
as much music as I do. That there's nobody that will like music from Robert Johnson all the way up to Public Enemy. People will always drop off in between somewhere. I'm the only one that stayed the course.
You realize
Jim.
there's been
But you
30
hate
years since
Adele.
Public Enemy, right?
Right, yeah, I stopped. I admit, I stopped
Okay.
liking music in the year
But Jimmy-
2000.
Okay.
But Jimmy, if
Yeah.
Adele and Public Enemy right now collaborated,
Yeah.
he would not be happy about that.
He would not. He'd hate it.
He would hate it.
He's a snob.
No,
even
there you go.
before it even
Dennis,
came out.
Dennis
let me
is a
say.
music snob.
Let me say, I do like the Prophets of Rage, which is Rage Against the Machine mixed with Public Enemy. It's awesome.
And Cypress Hill.
Yes, exactly. That's good stuff. All right, so
But I brought
now,
up Adele and noticed he dodged the question.
Yeah, he dodged the
What?
question.
Adele,
Dodged
no,
the
Adele's
question.
not influential. All right, so here we go. We're going back to 1967 now. We just got past Bob Dylan. There's a whole new world opening in 1967. Now, one of my favorites, and what I'm going with is most influential of that time period, is the Velvet Underground. New York
Right.
City,
Good show.
dark,
Lou Reed.
nothing like this.
Absolutely.
Lou Reed, this song Heroin, right? Nobody's talking
Deep,
about heroin
dark.
in 1967.
Dirty.
And
I
they,
can't entirely agree with this because right at the same time, there's a certain other band forming in Detroit that are just as influential.
yeah, but not in 1967. They ain't
Yeah.
got nothing going on in 67. This band is so influential, and we'll
Yes.
get to that band too. But like,
You're right.
everyone that I talk to and everyone that I've heard when it comes to the next generation of punk and glam, it's Lou Reed is one of the
And the
most
Velvet
influential in Velvet Underground,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, all right, so we're still sticking 1967. Now we're coming up to Purple Haze and Jimi Hendrix right there.
Whoa.
So now,
Heavy
besides Chuck Berry, the next most influential guitar player I would have to say is Jimi Hendrix. Anyone who played the guitar after that,
Agreed.
there's no debating his influence.
He
It's
revolutionized
sick.
the instrument.
Right, because you listen to it now, you heard Purple Haze 10 billion times. You might even turn the channel when you hear Purple Haze now. But imagine hearing it for the first time in 1967,
Yeah.
when right before that, whatever.
My father actually saw him in a bowling alley in Florida
Oh,
in
man.
1967.
Get
and,
out.
And said he was he won. He was a Bobby Darin, Frank Sinatra.
Right,
guy.
right,
He was like,
right.
this is all a bunch of noise. I gotta get out of here. I was like, Dad, you saw Jimi Hendrix in a bowling alley. He's like, yeah, but I don't understand it. It's not my thing. Yeah, that's what happens.
yeah.
You know,
So,
people
yeah.
don't get it.
Changed the
true.
world, revolutionized the world.
Revolutionized
It's just ridiculous, his influence. And, like I said, you could pick another song off there. You could pick Foxy Lady off that album.
Yeah.
But Purple Haze is the one that, went out to the masses. That's why I'm saying most influential.
Manic
So,
Depression.
yes, exactly. Another amazing song. That whole album is ridiculous. Like if we'll do that next time, 25 most influential albums of all time. And it will pretty much stay the same as this, but it will be the albums. But next, I'm going to go with The Doors. Also 1967, the first album. I'm going to go with Light My Fire, but I'm thinking about that, and it could be The End, which is even more influential because of the darkness. And Jim Morrison talking about effing his mother and killing his father during a song released in 1967.
Epic song.
Right.
One of the best ever. It really is.
and-
Yeah.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do you gentlemen know about the Triple X album with what is it? The X-rated album with Morrison and Hendrix?
No.
Did you, have you guys
I
heard anything?
kind of remember something about them recording together, but there was no video. It was only audio. And it's like, wake up, find my own self dead. I remember them talking about that.
And there's
but
also a show where Hendrix played on stage with John Lennon and played bass.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
He
That did
played
happen.
bass and Lennon played lead guitar.
Because I remember that he went up on stage with Clapton, and Clapton was like, so
Blown away.
like, oh, I got to get out of here. He's
Too
so
much.
mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because they were all talking at that time, all the Beatles and anyone who played guitar
Like,
in
have you seen
'67
Hendrix?
was like, we're hanging up. We're not playing guitar anymore. Forget it. Let's all switch to bass. So anyway, all right, so now we're going to progress to the next year now, 1968, 1969 era. And these songs now are all the formation of heavy metal, the forefathers of heavy metal, if
Very
you will.
true.
And that's why I'm putting them in here. Now, I'm going with Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin. But it could be any song off Led Zeppelin 2. It could even be Communication Breakdown or whatever off of Led Zeppelin 1. It was all around the same time. They're producing all of these albums at the same time. So that's up for debate there. But Led Zeppelin itself is not up for debate. I picked Whole Lotta Love because it was such a great song and it had such a great solo, and the solo's prominently displayed and all that
You
stuff
can
going
actually
on.
just say every Zeppelin song
Yeah.
Right.
album.
hmm But there has to be one that pushes you over to it.
Whole Lot of Love's a
And-
good one.
Right. So at the same time, I'm
Well.
saying "Smoke on the Water" by Deep Purple, and
Deep Purple's got.
See, I wouldn't
that was
do that,
later.
though.
I feel
but
Deep
the
Purple's got
reason
heavier.
the reason I said "Smoke on the Water" is because everyone who ever played the
Learn
guitar
how to play
after that,
guitar.
first song you
Yeah,
learn is
yes.
right.
It's true. It's true.
Exactly. So and then
To learn how to play that.
the next song is the same thing. It's Iron Man by Black Sabbath, one of the first
Now,
albums to
what-
come out.
Okay, let's talk about
Hold
Tony
on, can
Iommi
we-
for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question: didn't Paranoid come out after the album Black Sabbath?
Yes, it's not their first album. It was their second album.
So then
but
what-
this stuff, Iron Man and Paranoid,
'Cause I feel-
are the songs
I feel
that
the
catapulted.
Album, yeah, but have you've heard the song Black Sabbath?
Well, of course.
That to me is like what metal try to embody.
Well, didn't Geezer
that
Butler
doom?
try to say that he had a dream one night and all of a sudden it was like a figure standing over him?
Yeah.
See, that's the
But
thing. That's
What
why.
is this?
Yeah,
it's like, that's-
See, but that didn't take off that much at the first album and stuff. But like anyone, I just put it in there too because that's another song. When you're first learning guitar, you learn Iron Man and Paranoid.
True,
True.
yeah.
So
Okay,
that could be up for debate. But basically, it's any of those songs off of that one. But then the next one of Mike's favorites, is 68, 69, Kick Out the Jams by MC5.
MC5. Kick out the jam,
Exactly.
motherfucker!
Right. Now,
Aggression.
this band, so much aggression, so
So
much, so politicized, and these guys were so badass that this
band
was-
invented punk rock.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
That's one thing I
they
wanted to
really
say.
did.
That I've interviewed a lot of punk rock guys, and they all said their main influence was MC5.
Yeah.
Everyone, hands down, MC5.
So good.
Out of Detroit, these guys were sick. They were, and the FBI came down on them, arrested them, and put
And
them
this
away.
is 72?
No,
we're
this
not
is
gonna be-
69.
we're not
This is 69.
Since we can't be Black Panthers,
What about-
we're going to be White Panthers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is
Yeah.
heavy.
Playing
the
at the Detroit convention, not Detroit, the Chicago, Democratic
68
Convention in
National
'68.
Convention.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't have
Yeah.
any Jethro Tull.
Well, no, I'm not surprised by that.
Sitting on a park
Really?
bench.
Because it's not
Yeah,
the best.
I thought Jethro Tull was
I
pretty
love Jethro Tull, but I don't think that they were that influential.
Oh wait.
That
I-
according to
It's
this. All right,
amazing.
let's
According
see.
to this, according
Now,
to this.
see, this is the thing because this is the top 25. So tell me which of these next bands you want out and Jethro Tull instead of. All right.
Okay.
So the next one is
Wait.
"I Want to Be Your Dog" by Iggy
I
Pop
will
and the
not
Stooges. You want to
ever-
take that out for Jethro
No,
Tull?
no, I won't.
Well, of course, Iggy Pop and the
Well, of
Stooges
course.
was so influential. You know, he loved the Doors, and he became one of the best front men of all time. He was a forefather of punk, the godfather of punk, if you will. And this song was ridiculously influential. And then the next one, I'm going with "School's Out" by Alice Cooper. And it could be "I'm 18" by Alice Cooper. But early 70s, he was the guy who invented shock rock. He invented Kiss. He invented Marilyn Manson, GWAR, you name it. Anyone who ever wore makeup after 1970 was influenced by Alice Cooper.
Kiss
Weird
and
dolls.
Alice came out at the same time.
Nah, Kiss was first. I mean, Alice was first, of course, because he was really
No,
the late
but I know.
60s. Kiss, came out after that.
But
and
Alice didn't come out with makeup immediately. Like
I think.
no,
well, of
he didn't.
course.
He was a glam
invented.
guy. Like
Right,
he
and
tried
the-
to be part
and the
of, like,
makeup.
He wanted to be like T-Rex.
Nah,
Yeah.
T-Rex
Very
was
beginning.
later.
Yeah.
T-Rex
Very
was later.
beginning.
Nope. Look
Yeah.
it
He
up.
was glammy.
Look at the timeline. Alice was first. He came out with Dwight Fry in like
Ballad of
69.
Dwight Fry did not come out in '69.
Yes, it did. Look it up.
Oh, okay.
And then these
That's
songs
getting
came out
edited.
in the 70s. And then next up is most influential,
look
Ziggy
it up.
Stardust by David Bowie. Yeah, go ahead. Keep looking it up while I'm doing this. Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie. You can't question
well,
that. That was
Bowie.
73. Bowie was so influential. Now
Genius.
this was glam. This was the key to glam. Everyone after that copied that, and he's like, all right, I'm done with this. New York Dolls came around this same time, but it was kind of different,
Dolls came out in '73, right?
Right, and this was 73, but everyone was influenced by Bowie. Kids were going out of their mind over Bowie. The whole world changed over David Bowie.
I agree.
So now we're up to the mid-70s here, and now I'm going into the punk rock realm, and I'm going to say the most influential song of all time by any punk band is the Ramones with Blitzkrieg Bop, which came out 74, 75, and
Not Gimme Danger in '69.
this is punk
That's
rock.
71.
That's the
71, I should say.
forebearers. Once again, this is punk rock right now.
No.
Not the
Raw
forefathers.
Power is the first punk rock album. Of all time.
Nope.
It totally is.
It
No,
is a
it definitely
forefather
is.
of punk, but is not punk. Right now, this is
you're
punk.
cute.
1975, New York City, and then a lot of people say, "Oh, it started in London. Did it start in New York?"
started in
No,
Detroit.
it started in New York City.
started in Detroit.
That it was influenced
Oh,
by
man.
Detroit, but it came out
Started
New
in
York
Detroit.
City. New York City's greatest city
The first
of
Stooges
any
album
city
of all
in the world.
Is the original
And here we go.
Crosstalk. Here it comes.
We got no crosstalk is if you were talking to him.
The
but you were-
first. Jimmy.
Go ahead.
The very first punk rock album came out in 1969.
But it wasn't called punk rock at that point.
It doesn't
And-
matter.
No,
was,
it does.
It was coined
It's-
based on that.
I,
based on that.
All right, it's like I
Jimmy,
said,
back
it's
me
on
up.
the
Come
list.
on.
It's on the
I
list.
gotta- it's tough.
Iggy's on the
It's
list,
tough
but
because
now
I
we're
get-
talking about
Iggy invented
all
punk
right,
rock.
whatever we're gonna call it. 1970s here,
Switzerland.
mid 70s here. Ramones, Blitzkrieg Bop, hugely influential.
Very true.
And at the same time, which was not even the first one. The first one in London was really The Damned, but the Sex Pistols came out with Anarchy in the UK, like 76. But they're claiming
my
that right. But Buzzcocks was great. They had so many punk bands at this time, but these were the most influential. Joy Division was not influential as
my
no.
God.
They are not as influential
You're out of your-
as
See,
the
now-
Sex Pistols or the Ramones.
He's been drinking.
There's no way you can say they're as influential as the Sex Pistols
sorry.
or the
back,
Ramones.
Folks,
back
audience,
to marketing.
Jimmy,
It-
tell the audience. He had too much Pinot Grigio tonight.
Too many white wine
Is
spritzers.
it influential?
No, I
Have you
didn't.
ever
All
heard
right,
a band
I
called
didn't
The
mean
Cure?
that. I didn't mean
Like,
that.
wait.
But they're not as influential as the Ramones or the Sex Pistols. that Joy Division is a separate entity unto
How
its
about
own,
the Stooges?
just like
where,
the Cure.
Where do you rate them?
Stooges were already on this list. We already put them on there.
You didn't really rate them, though.
There's no ranking. This is in new chronological order. They were hugely influential, is what I said, into the punk music, and that's why we're moving up now. Now the Ramones were hugely influential on the next generation and punk. Same thing with the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, if you're basing it on time, in a way, it's laying.
Right, and that's the way I'm laying this out. Is like
I see it.
Who started?
I see
who came after that? Who
timeline.
influenced more people? Not the best songs. In particular,
Well, no, the
it's
best
just
songs do
influential.
count, though.
Of course it does. But the influence is what I'm talking about right here. So that brings me to my next one, which is The Clash, and I'm going with London Calling. And the reason I'm going with that is because it took punk rock to a whole nother level. It's just like the Stones and Dylan did with the Beatles, and
it became acceptable to people who weren't into punk.
Right, and it became mainstream, and it became intelligent as well with,
Walking to a supermarket.
Right,
Yeah,
all these different kind of things. It didn't just have to be, straight punk rock. It could be this, it could be that, and it was hugely influential. So this is a perfect time.
I hate agreeing with this man. I really don't like to agree with him.
It's painful.
It's
painful.
So now we're gonna take another break. Now we're gonna play Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones, and we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Mike's under the table. Hey, welcome back live from Dennis's house. And that was Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones, one of my favorite bands of all time, New York City, punk rock, 1975. But now we're going to move ahead, and we're going to come up. We're still in the 70s, though, but one of the most influential guitarists since Jimi Hendrix, we're going with Van Halen, Running with the Devil.
Thank you.
All right? Everyone agree with that?
I needed that.
Of course. He's hugely influential. No questioning that.
You left out other guitarists from the 70s that were so important, like Ritchie Blackmore.
All right, he was. But this is not the most influential guitarist list. This is the most influential songs.
What about,
and I already had Smoke on the Water on there.
In that case,
I had Smoke on the Water, remember?
This is so hard because
25. You can only have 25.
So hard.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So hard.
You got sweet. You didn't even include Southern rock.
Nope.
No
Aerosmith. Nope. Didn't need Aerosmith. Music would have gone on with Aerosmith or not. Even though all of their stuff is great, I love Aerosmith. Not influential.
And no Southern rock. No Allman Brothers. Nothing.
Nope.
Yeah,
nope. Couldn't go on this list.
There's not enough space.
It's not enough. It's top 25, not top 20,000. Because if it was top 20,000, I would have put in Allman Brothers, no question. But top 25, you gotta, streamline. That's what makes it tough. So, all right. So I'm going 25. With Running with the Devil, Van Halen. Van Halen. Everyone was influenced after that point by Eddie Van Halen.
See, I'm more of Unchained.
Right. But this got to go off the first album, and you could do Eruption and stuff. That was so sick.
My list.
That was sick. So, but then I'm moving on from there. I'm going to Fight the Power by Public Enemy.
Jumping.
Because there was really not much going on
was a hero
in the
most.
80s.
Elvis was a hero the most. Elvis was a hero the most. But he never meant shit to me.
See, now, because in the 80s, you had all the new wave that went from the punk rock scene. And there was a lot of great music and stuff. You could even have Prince, of course, but I couldn't put Prince on here because there wasn't enough room for him, even though he belongs on this list.
Honestly, he needs his own list.
Exactly. But I had to go with this.
Yeah, he is that heavy.
That, because you can't, dismiss rap music, right? Because that's the only thing happening still.
Now going to dismiss
I had the Sugar Hill
heavy
Gang
metal
on
music.
Mine. I had the Sugar Hill Gang.
Right. See, I thought about that,
and
I said, that's kind of the first rap song. But this stuff, Fight the Power, was so important. It was in the movies, and
Anthrax.
It was in that movie.
It started.
What movie was it, Dennis?
Do the Right Thing.
Oh, Spike Lee.
And that it was so influential because they took rap from hip hop, hippity hoppity hop, till Fight the Power.
Something with more meaning. Heavy.
Exactly. And then on that vein, later on, it was NWA, Straight Outta Compton, or F the Police, whatever. This started gangster rap, which, because now rap music is all watered down nonsense now. It's like, I got bitches and money. Really, that's all everything is.
It's almost like, I'm going to wrap up right now. I'm going to get some 10. You're gonna wear some other band.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
You
all.
got some
no
hair
sense.
and I got hair.
It's third
Yeah.
grade level
We're gonna
nonsense.
go now and then
right,
we're gonna not care.
There's nothing. There's nothing
Right?
that's important
It's
at
like-
all.
It's bad.
And now
Monosyllabic
I'm
nonsense.
switching right now. I'm jumping to the last song on the list, the last important influential song for me, 1991 or whatever it was. It was "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana.
Wait, you're
Now-
leaving out the whole
Of course,
80s.
that's
The
it.
whole 80s.
I don't find anything influential in the 80s besides
Oh, please.
NWA and Public Enemy. Tell me what. All right, so let me go on to Nirvana, and then you can come back and say what you question. Because, of course, 91, that cut out the whole heavy metal, hair metal nonsense, and it started this whole
Cut
movement.
out all metal.
Of course. No, I'm saying
whole
this
milk.
band right
You
here.
just cut out all metal.
Nirvana-
All
Just
Nirvana put
Slayer does not exist. Metallica does not exist.
Nirvana.
Wait.
Hold on.
Anthrax.
Hold
Wait,
on. Hold
keep
on.
going.
Get to it on your time. Now, let me explain Nirvana. Nirvana put the stake in the heart of hair metal, and they started a whole new movement, the grunge movement. They were the first ones, kind of like the Beatles. I like Pearl Jam better than Nirvana, but I can't deny. I like STP. I like so many bands of the 90s. Better than Nirvana, but you can't deny that Nirvana was the most influential because they hit first and they exploded this whole
I
You
movement.
think
would do
SCP
just
is
one
better
thing.
than Nirvana?
One-
I might
I
have to walk
personally
off
like.
this show.
I
One
personally
thing-
like.
hold
I
on, hold on.
love STP.
One thing
Better than
I-
Nirvana?
I would
Yes.
change from your list is you have number 24 as Straight Outta Compton NWA.
Right.
I would X-nay that and
Okay.
I'd put Metallica Enter Sandman. Because you have
I would not
That's
do that.
that's
you would keep
reasonable.
NWA? You would keep NWA there for 24?
Yeah.
See, but
Really?
now hold on a second.
Like,
now this is my thought
Metallica
process.
mainstream for metal.
But no, metal was already there.
No,
it
but you
started
guys are leaving
and
out other bands too, like.
well, hold on. Let me
But he
get
has
to
no
my
metal
point.
there.
Hold on, settle down. Let me say my point, then you raise your hand and you do your point. My point is saying heavy metal started with these guys, and it didn't really change because of Metallica. Metallica was great. Some people
No.
love Metallica, but what did they introduce as influence
I
different?
disagree because Metallica
They made
Can't-
metal classical.
well, not only that, they made metal for the next metal bands that were coming up.
All right,
so like
all
the
right, I would agree
Korns,
with
the
that.
Deftones, the
All
Gojira,
right, so
a
then-
whole nother genre of
There you
metal that
go.
you really don't listen to. But
Right,
with
right. See,
Metallica was
let
the
me
Trivium.
let me make a
Well-
disclaimer here. I do not like heavy metal. I tolerate Metallica. I love Zeppelin, Sabbath, all of that
Yeah.
kind of
No,
stuff.
but you
I
don't
don't
like
like
Slayer.
anything. I don't like Slayer. I don't like any of that stuff.
Doesn't like any of it.
Anthrax, I like a couple songs.
That's
you know.
amazing.
You know, but so that's going to have to be a whole nother list and a whole nother show. Top 25 most influential heavy metal songs.
Which you know,
Which
would probably
you
be-
guys have to do on your own
I'll be,
show.
yeah,
No, but you literally just jumped like 30 years. You're like, okay, we're gonna go.
you
from
really
like-
did go from
we're
79.
gonna go from like the
You went 79 to
Stooges
92.
to Nirvana.
Well, no.
Like, that's kind of nuts.
Van
Yankees?
Halen was 76 or whatever, right?
76.
Fight the Power was 89. So, all right.
Barrel.
Fight the Power, Public Enemy. So tell me, let's talk about between Van Halen and Public Enemy. What would you put in there?
Well,
Is that where you put in Metallica?
Wait a minute, though.
well-
Slayer, Guar, whatever?
Okay, man.
Tell me, what goes in that time frame
I
that
think you
is...
have Iron Maiden. You know, the Trooper.
no, that's
But
like
you can't have-
78, dude. That's,
but you-
That's after 76.
Because...
That's what I mean. He's got nothing.
All right, here
he's got nothing
Mike, he
between
has nothing.
79 and what? 90?
No, yeah, he's got nothing.
90.
well, no, it's 89. Fight the Power, Public
Yeah,
Enemy came
10
out in
years.
89.
You have a huge gap.
And so, therefore, what was so influential during that time? You
You
said
have a
Metallica
Warren, You
already.
have a Warren Hutton gap.
You
Right
said,
there.
you're all right, but you said Metallica already. These other bands are not that much more
Bon-
influential than
No,
Metallica.
Iron Maiden is fucking influential.
AC/DC?
AC/DC is very
You have
influential.
no AC/DC.
All right, so then you can't put Metallica on the list then. AC/DC belongs in there, I would
How
say.
is Metallica not on the list?
Because
dude?
it's 25. All right, so
All right, okay.
you can't put them all on
All
there.
right, I'm not disagreeing.
So
But
now
you're-
It's
you're not gonna
AC/DC.
put Joy Division on the list.
It's
No,
tight.
Joy Division is not going on the list ever.
Oh my god!
I'll put Metallica. If we go to 30, I'll put
And you
AC/DC
think that the Ramones
and
are
Metallica.
more like influential as far as punk than the Ramones?
What? Ramones more important than the Ramones? We're going off the rails. We got to rein this in. So, yes. All right. So, say we go to 5 more. Like, say I go to the top 30.
Okay.
What 5 do you want to put on there?
AC/DC.
All right. I'll agree with that.
Got it.
100%.
Gotta go Metallica.
I'll even agree with that.
Let's see. Who else did you have going on?
Wait,
Aerosmith.
from 79 to 89?
No, it doesn't matter what years. You can put it in any year
I'm
there. I'm
thinking-
just
I'm
adding
thinking
it
the
5
80s.
more
The
now.
Stooges.
Stooges are already on there.
They're on there. They're on there.
What's wrong with you? Haven't you been paying attention?
Depeche Mode.
Never. Depeche Mode, even if we go to top 20,000, Depeche Mode is not going on this list. The Cure, maybe. The Cure, maybe.
They're not gonna
The Smiths.
The Smiths, maybe.
The Smiths? Come on.
Because they'll go into the emo
Janis Joplin.
category.
No, and honestly,
Janis Joplin, yes. I
Treasure
would
of
put
Janis.
Janis Joplin.
wait.
Yeah.
Also,
I'd put the Allman Brothers.
Yeah, you do almonds. That's it. There's your 30. You almost got. I think you got maybe one more.
See, this is where you
tough.
come up with your, like, who was on your list? You have your list available?
Yeah, I do.
Like, is there anyone that you didn't mention
Let
already?
me see.
That, you could put Stevie Ray Vaughan, but
didn't
really,
Grant Hart just die also? As
who's
well?
that?
The drummer from Husker Du.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had
people
House
died.
of the
On the
Rising
list.
Sun on here because you did songs.
Oh, the Animals.
So
Yes.
I had Jerry Lewis, who you didn't have.
Jerry Lewis?
Jerry Lewis.
Jerry Lee Lewis. I'm sorry.
Jerry Lewis.
Yes.
Oh,
I had,
lady.
I had Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, great
Well,
stuff.
Queen has to go on-
Queen
Queen has
was
to go on the
huge.
list.
Queen
Yeah.
was
Wait,
huge.
no,
You
we have
know.
to start over.
Well,
5,
no.
4, 3, 2, 1.
That-
So
this
there's
is,
a couple
I
things.
thought about
There's a
that.
couple things.
See, these are all
Queen.
bands that I thought about. I thought
How
about
is Queen
Queen
not on the list?
because there's no room for them, and they weren't that influential. I had to have the top most influential bands that clearly influenced the next generation
Beatles.
of music. Because what
You know
music
what?
came directly from Queen?
Let's scratch the Beatles.
I will scratch your eyes out before I scratch the
Sorry,
Beatles.
sorry. Scratch the.
How dare you? The whole show is over if we don't include the Beatles. That people will be throwing
The
rotten
Beatles.
tomatoes at us because
Gotta
the
love the
Beatles,
Beatles.
basically are the most influential band of all time. That even more so than Chuck Berry and
I'm
Elvis,
so
I
sick
think.
of hearing that from your generation. I've
My
had enough.
generation.
I'm about to go shoot up a parking lot in Las Vegas because I'm really
It's
upset
just-
about all this nonsense and all this
my
craziness
God.
about the Beatles.
How can you even say something like that? It's so insane that
Oh my god. No comment. It's getting too.
that you can't question
Out
the
of control.
Beatles' importance
Out
in
of
music.
control.
You cannot. No show can be complete if you question. It's like questioning Chuck Berry,
Dennis.
questioning Elvis.
Oh, love me do.
Exactly.
Oh, I love you.
Exactly.
I'll always
There'd
be
be no
true.
music right now.
Please.
You know what Ozzy's favorite band was? The
Love me
Beatles.
do.
The Beatles. You know what Iggy Pop and the
Oh,
Stooges
love
would be
me
singing
do.
right now if it wasn't for the Beatles?
Love me
They'd
do.
be doing Fabian cover tunes.
The show tunes.
Exactly.
I wish I could see that.
It's time.
That would be an amazing.
There'd be. All
I
right.
want to see.
It's a controversial-
I want to see. what
No, it's not
Charles
controversial.
Manson
It's
needs
clear.
to have his
cut.
own show.
Exactly. Charles Manson. There'd be no
Charles Ma-
Charles Manson without the Beatles.
No, there wouldn't be. You're right. Okay, fine. He wins.
End of story.
That you can't question the Beatles. You can question anyone else, even if you want on this
Even
list.
Charles
you can't
Manson if you
question.
want to.
You can't question the Beatles.
Beatles.
It's just ridiculous.
Oh God.
So
Except
all
for the
right.
Rolling Stones, they question the Beatles every day, all
No,
day.
but even them, they love the
did.
Rolling
They win.
Stones. They love
No,
the Beatles, I
They
mean.
win though.
Nah, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
We're
and
talking
you don't
about
have the Who. I'm
influence.
sorry, you don't have the Who on there.
Who were great too, and they were very
Who were great,
influential.
too.
But
My
you
name is
can't
Dr.
just
Who.
you can't just have every single band,
I know it's tough.
right?
hard.
So
Oh, come
we cut it
on.
down
I'm
to
not,
25.
I'm not. I'm. This
Tell
is
me
a
a song.
solid. This
Tell
is a
me-
solid
all right,
The
there you
25.
Pink
go.
Fairies.
There's a solid 25 in chronological order for importance.
There you go. See, Jim.
Don't laugh. You
up
know what I'm
until-
talking about.
Up
See, he
until
knows what I'm
92.
talking about.
Up until 92.
And then
Pink
what happened
Fairies.
in '92?
I think you have a whole new rebirth of music that starts. You have Korn comes out, Deftones. You have a
The
whole.
Deftones,
You have the Nine
awesome.
Inch Nails. You have Tool. You have a complete
Marilyn
industrial.
Manson.
Industrial music comes out. It's a whole different ballgame.
See, but here's the problem: that nothing came after that music. That music ended after Tool.
Well, what you kind of have coming in now is it's
Nothing.
getting away from rock and roll.
Exactly.
it's
That's my
so-
point. So that's where Public Enemy and NWA come in because the only music left is rap and it's pop. Really, like you said, Adele and Beyonce and
There's
just,
still
just
good music out there. Like
No, there's not.
Greater Van Fleet. I know you'd love.
I would hate 'em.
You're right. I've never
you're out
seen
of
your
your
band. Like, come on, man.
There's music out there you don't listen to. You're just not.
No, and I shouldn't have to.
I
Because
could turn you
No,
on.
you should, because
I should
you're
have
the
to.
greatest
There's so much good
photographer of all
music.
time. You're the
Yes.
greatest actor of all time. You got to try harder, man.
No, I shouldn't have to try harder.
No.
Like, listen, when I was a kid, I was born in '64. In the late '60s, I would open up my window and there'd be the Rolling Stones blaring from someone walking by. I'd turn on the TV, there'd be Alice Cooper blasting on the TV. I would throw a rock out the window, I would hit a great rock musician. All through the '70s, I would walk down the street, great music everywhere I turned and looked. All through the '80s, great music. '90s, great music. And then '98, year 2000,
He had
everything
children.
stopped. And no, it had nothing to do with that. Because if that was the case, I would have stopped in high school where most people stop. But I progressed. That's why I'm saying I'm the most diverse rock fan of all time.
You are.
Because most people, I love everything from Simon and Garfunkel through Public Enemy. And
Do you like
then
the Smiths?
I do like the Smiths, sure.
Oh,
But
tell me why.
But I think you are.
I like the Cure.
You're lacking in certain.
I don't need to lack because, like, nowadays people say
I
there's
don't even
good
know what
music.
that means. I don't know what that means. What,
I don't
Yeah,
need
like,
to
hold
laugh.
on.
I don't need
I've
to
never
lack.
laughed in my
What does
life.
that mean?
I don't need to laugh.
Here's my
Alright.
point. That, like, some people say there's still good music out there, but you got to go find it. No, if there's really, because everybody says, oh, my brother's in a band, he plays some good songs, right? No, that if they put him up against Iggy and the Stooges and the Ramones, he'd be thrown in the street. Your brother maybe recorded some good songs in his basement, but in the reality and the big scheme of music, your brother's band sucks.
My brother's name is Donovan.
If there's good music, it will find me. I don't have to go find good music. I never had to find it until the year 2000. And then all of a sudden, they tell me I got to go find music. No! Music finds me, Jim.
All right,
I'm
Dennis.
Dennis Morgello.
Damn right you are. Damn right you are.
This just went off the rails. But, like, honestly, like, if you just want to talk about music, like, he gave up music in the 80s.
Yeah.
He
Who did?
You did.
You did.
No, I certainly
You did.
didn't.
I really
You
feel like you
definitely
gave up
did.
music a long
Listen,
time ago.
I
did.
gave up music after
did.
grunge and all that good stuff. The last great movement of music
You lost
was
your way.
all through the 90s. Now, you tell me your favorite bands of the 2000s that started in the 2000s. Don't tell me any bands that started in the 80s or 90s. Tell me the best band that started in the 2000s.
Joe Bonamassa.
He didn't start.
No, he
'Cause,
didn't start.
Listen, because I had Waylon Krieger on my show last week.
But Waylon
Robbie
Krieger-
Krieger's son, hold on. He's Robbie Krieger's son. He was in a band with Joe Bonamassa in the 80s called
the 90s.
Bloodline.
The 90s. It was the 90s.
Right,
not
it was the 90s.
The
It
mid-90s,
was called
yeah.
Bloodline.
Never
So
went anywhere,
there's
though.
Joe Bonamassa. Then Joe Bonamassa went out.
Jared-
He's a great guitar player. He plays the blues. No different than Stevie Ray
Jared-
Vaughan. Nothing earth-shattering about Joe Bonamassa.
Jared James Nichols.
Never heard of him.
Of course. But
What
you
does
were
he
asking
do?
me to tell you he's a guitar
What does he
player.
do? I don't want to
He's a
hear
rock-
people who just
He's a
rehash.
rock-
I don't want to hear guitarists who rehash Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan. That's it. I want to hear guys who are earth-shattering, world earthquaking, bow-shaking.
Earthquaking.
Exactly.
This quick.
Who do what Jimi Hendrix
Tosin,
did.
Then I can go on then. And Tosin Anabasi.
Why doesn't remember Jimi Hendrix?
You don't listen to Animals as leaders.
But did anyone have to go find Jimi Hendrix music, or
Animal-
was it thrown
Animal
on your
as lead-
street?
Actually,
Animal
Jimi
as
Hendrix
leaders,
had,
like,
had to
found-
actually move to
there's
England
music
for
that-
anybody to pay attention to.
Exactly. But once
Scale
he
the
became
summit.
popular, his music was all over the world. He was the most famous musician in the world, the highest paid musician in
Well,
the
then we
world
should talk-
was
we should
Jimi
do a whole
Hendrix.
show
There's
about
so much
producers.
music that you don't even know
Certain
about.
producers.
Of course, and
it
I
found
shouldn't
me,
have
but
to.
You don't listen to Liquid Metal for a day on Sirius XM.
No, I
Just
can't.
listen to the radio.
I do listen to the radio all the time. What's the song
More
and
than
the
classic
band?
vinyl.
What's the song or the band that I should listen to, and where should I find it? What is the band that's better than the Beatles that you say that came out in the 2000s?
More musically
Better
technical
than
than
the
the
Beatles?
No.
What
Are
are
you
you
kidding me?
talking about?
A song
dude?
that's more influential, a band that's more influential than the Beatles, and they have 100 hit songs, and they're better than the Beatles that came out in the year 2000.
That's like saying
Exactly.
give me something
That's
better
the
than
point of the
Beatles.
show.
Okay, fine. One
Exactly.
I'm
One
done. I
direction.
can't. I can't.
One
do this.
direction.
I can't.
One
I just can't.
direction.
I can't. I'm done. I'm done.
Done.
I'm so
I
done.
swear, I'm very
It's
upset right
impossible.
now.
But that's the
Impossible.
point
They're
of
upsetting
what
me.
we're talking about now.
One
That
direction.
There's no music better than anything on this list that's coming out currently. And if you disagree with that, I want you to say what song you want taken off of this list and what band song came out after 2000 that you want added to the list. Here you go.
After 2000?
Yeah, the band had to come out after 2000. And one of these songs has to come off.
He didn't tell you that the Cranberries are on that list. I'm telling you. Love me.
I don't think that's a Cranberries.
No,
that's like
no. What was that?
The Bobby. All right, so here.
I got nothing.
Exactly, that's my point. That's
Because
my only point. No,
you guys
go
talking about
ahead.
Joe Bonamassa
I'm
for the
turning
past
my
15
back.
minutes.
I'm turning my back. You write it down on this piece of paper while
of
I'm
paper.
over here, and you write down the song and the band that came out after 2000.
Eminem.
That was better. No, come on, Jim. Don't make me turn this
Are you
table
fucking
over.
serious?
No,
Oh, excuse my language on the radio. Eminem.
All right, write it
got a
down.
point.
What song's coming off that Eminem was better than?
I'd take straight
The
out of
Slim
Compton
Shady
off.
LP.
I'd take straight out of Compton off.
So you're saying
No.
gangster
I would.
rap never existed.
No, you have gangster.
And then
you
you're
have
saying,
Fight
all
the
right,
Power.
hold on.
Fight the Powers.
That's not gangster
No,
rap.
that's
no.
not gangster rap.
That's the
Gangster
start.
rap, straight out of camp. No, this
That
is
can't be-
political. This is political.
Gangster rap's political.
No, this is out of New York. Public Enemy's out of New York, and they're adding political stuff to
So did
rap.
NWA.
And NWA came from California, and they put in the gang influence that they came from. Their realism or whatever they were going
But
through.
that's their politics.
But now
Glossed over.
listen. Now hold on. That who was in NWA? Do we know?
Dr. Dre.
Easy.
Ice
Dr.
Cube,
Dr.
Easy.
Dre.
Dre.
Hold on. Dr. Dre,
Easy,
who went on
Dr.
to be a
Dre.
huge producer.
Ice
Who
Cube,
did
MC
he
Ren.
and Snoop Dogg start producing as one of their first people?
Eminem. what is-
Eminem. That's what
No,
I'm
that's
saying.
later on.
That's
No,
that's
that's
why
Tony
it's so
I-
influential.
No, that's
because
Tony Iovine, man. No.
NWA founded Eminem. There'd be no Eminem without NWA.
I disagree.
I'm walking.
Well, how can you say
I
that?
can't. I got nothing.
Are you denying that?
I can't argue at lunacy.
Are you denying?
I cannot argue
hold on.
with insanity.
Are you
What?
denying that Dre and Snoop founded Eminem? Eminem just went by his own, recorded on his own label, had nothing to do with Dr. Dre.
The
Actually
fact is
tell
he
you
was
what happened.
found.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Right
please.
by Dr. Dre.
No, he was not.
Tony Iovine.
Get the
Res-
heck
no.
out of here. Tony Iovine. All
know.
right, look it up.
No.
Come on, Google that right now. Get your
right.
thing. Sit down.
The demo tape. Tony Iovine got. No.
Sit down.
No, you're wrong. You're so wrong.
So Dr. Dre and Snoop had nothing to do with Eminem.
You're talking about Eminem.
Right.
Yes. Tony Iovine said, "Here, Dr. Dre."
All right, whatever. But
Record this.
there would
Record
be.
this.
Why didn't Iovine go and do it by himself in his
because
own?
he's not a hip hop recorder.
Exactly.
No, he's not gonna do that.
But that's like. Don't you see
help
the
me out,
influence?
man.
We're talking about influence. I don't think you guys understand influence. I don't think you guys understand it. That's the problem.
What I'm saying is Eminem is very influential.
All right, I won't deny that.
That's it. So then, what more do you need? What more
But
is
he
your argument?
can't be more influential than
Okay,
the
wait.
master. That's like
The
taking.
master.
That's like. All right, who am I going to take off here? I'm going to take off.
You have the 25 most influential songs of all time, and you
Exactly.
stopped at 92.
Because there was nothing more influential than this after 92. There was nothing.
Oh my God.
Because grunge, in my head and my mind, was the last great movement of rock and roll. And you haven't given me a great movement. And Eminem was during the 90s, and he came out of the NWA scene. And whether it was Iovine or this guy or that guy that founded him, how can you
it's okay.
He
deny
changed
that?
rap.
Is it okay?
He changed
time for
rap.
you
He
to go to
changed
bed.
it more than
okay.
NWA.
Yes, he's
Let me
the
check
greatest
your-
rapper to ever
Let me
exist.
check your blood pressure.
The white
Are you
guy-
okay?
He's
Are
the
you okay?
greatest
Named
rapper.
Eminem.
Okay,
A
right
white
now.
Dennis,
guy
he's the
named
greatest
Eminem.
rapper who ever
Oh my
existed.
God.
Put him in the
No.
wheelchair.
His
I'm
rhyme
having
scheme-
cardiac arrest.
It's
I'm
okay.
having
It's
cardiac
okay.
arrest.
Calm down.
Then therefore we have to go back and put Vanilla Ice on the scene because he was the direct influence to
Stop.
Eminem.
Collaborate and listen.
You're being-
That
Ice is back with the brand.
Now you're
new
being
edition
facetious.
Jump
And I
Back.
don't appreciate it.
Seriously.
I don't appreciate the sarcasm.
Oh my God, this is like a 3-part show
too
if we
much.
leave all this shit in here. It's like midnight now. All right, so
Anyways, great list though. Honestly,
Yes.
That's
solid
terrifying.
list.
I don't agree with any of that. Sorry.
Great list.
No, here, record this. I don't agree with this list at all. It's terrifying. And honestly,
all right, no, you say something
once I
that
had
you want to take
once
off.
I had children, I decided this list doesn't count anymore. I'm done.
All right,
Eminem
so,
has nothing to do with anything. Neither does Dr. Dre. And Iggy, not that influential.
He doesn't even know what happened on this show. He wasn't listening to anything that was on this show. All right, so here we go. As the epilogue now, we're going to give you, Mike Macchioli, an opportunity to do what Jimmy said. I won't even question it. I won't even say a word. You take someone off this list, and you add
Someone after 2000.
someone on after 2000.
Give me the list.
You don't have to actually physically do that, but all right, go ahead.
Yeah.
It has to be done.
All right.
Strike the name and add a new one.
Yeah. So come on, we're
Wait,
we're
give me-
still recording. That doesn't matter. I'll
give me a
let it
minute.
out. I'll
We've
let
been
it out to
recording the whole
silence.
time. You
I
gotta
know we
watch.
got 2.5 hour show here.
Yeah. Okay. He said Heroin by the Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
That is not an influential song. That's something he loves. He loves this. Ooh, I do too.
I think you're
But
I
no.
think you're right, Mike. Heroin.
Heroin
does
does that isn't influential.
gosh.
That means oh my god, I'm very verklempt. I don't know what's going
That
on
was
right
so
now.
serious. Oh my
I feel
god.
like there's
I've
this
never
rushing
heard it in
headache.
my life.
Oh my god.
Now I feel like what heroin
I feel
feels
this
like.
heaviness on my brow. But
All right,
no,
all right, take it. I'm not
Heroin
gonna say anything.
by the Velvet Underground. That's got to go away.
All right, take it off. What are you putting on in its place?
Panama, Van Halen.
But there's already a Van Halen
It
song
doesn't
on
matter.
there.
You missed
That's
out
so
on the
stupid.
best ever.
That is so stupid.
Yep, no, it's very
Panama.
influential.
It would make sense then. Why wouldn't you take Running with the Devil off and put Panama in there?
Come on, Jimmy. Panama. Oh, 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 oh.
All right, hold on now. What songs are we playing here? Hey, welcome back. Live from Dennis's house. As you saw, Mike and Jim both had a breakdown and we had to call the police in. But now we're back and we're going to wrap this show up. That was the 25 most influential songs of all time. And as you know, I am the foremost authority on everything. And whatever I say is correct. So you can take this to the bank. And this actual list is going to be appearing in Madhouse Magazine. Check it out, madhousemagazine.com. And then you can add your comments in on the website and you can say this song stinks, this one should be there, this one should be off, and it'll be a never-ending debate, and it'll be lots of fun. I love a debate like that, actually, even though my opinion is the only one that counts. So anyway, we're going to wrap this show up. It was a lot of fun, and I knew I
was a
could
blast.
count.
Filled with
This was a
Pinot
good
Grigio,
show. This was a blast.
I
libations and all
knew
kinds
these
of
are
fun
the two
stuff.
perfect guys. I knew I could count on them to be completely insane and
Us. We're the
question
insane
It's our fault.
question my
come on.
genius. So anyway, we're going to wrap this up, and we're going to play "Running with the Devil" by Van Halen,
Didn't we play that
original
already?
Van Halen, and then we're going to play "Teen Spirit" by Nirvana, and then we're going out with the artist of the month, and we'll see you next time here on Live from Dennis's house, part of the Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour.
Rap.
Let's hear it for us, Jimmy and Macchioli.
And always Dennis.
And let's hear it for Dennis.
Dennis.